Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth
On Now You Know. Brought to you this week by A Better Route Planner. A Better Route Planner lets you view your trip right on the map. It shows you all of the charging stops, each with important information, charging time, percentages, cost. It will even show you how long each leg is. You can hide and show the pop-ups by clicking on the map, or you can pull down the list to have all the information in a table. All at a glance, all for free on abetterrouteplanner.com.
and brought to you by Bior. Build your own robot.
Take robotics to the kids' level.
So we were fortunate enough to meet up with Gali Russell from Hyperchange in New York while we were there last week. And we got to talk about all sorts of cool subjects, and we thought we'd share it with you here on In Depth this week. All right, so we're in 368 with Gali from Hyperchange, and we figured we would just steal him over here to the couch for a few minutes and talk to you about all things Tesla. And we're just gonna pick your brain. I was just watching your latest video that came out talking about the quarterly numbers. And this is something, again, like we've been covering Tesla for 3 years or whatever, but this guy, you know everything. I didn't get this. Version 10 just came out. Because they released some features that are considered full self-driving, that means that Tesla can now, I guess, free up some money that had been kept in some kind of reserve accounts, right?
Yeah,
I need you to explain this.
It's actually kind of funny because it's really just a dumb accounting error. And so that's the root of the problem, because so when you buy your Tesla, and let's say you buy the $6,000 fully self-driving option, Tesla is actually not recognizing that $6,000 in revenue or the full of it, even though they've actually gotten the cash. So they put that on their balance sheet in terms of liabilities under deferred revenue. Okay. Basically, it's a liability because they have to deliver that feature. When they deliver that feature, they're allowed to recognize the portion of that revenue. So as they roll out more features, they'll recognize this revenue. But why I say it's an accounting game, it doesn't matter. It's like they already had the cash months ago.
Right.
But it's just that Wall Street is sort of overthinking it and saying, oh my God, the margins are going down, but they're not really. It's just that they couldn't report that.
How do they determine how much of that revenue they can declare as now theirs? Like, who decides?
Right. Is it 25% self-driving? Is it 30% self-driving?
That is a really complicated accounting question that I personally don't know, but we're gonna have to see. But like, for instance, like there's been about 120 million added each quarter in net deferred revenue the past 2 quarters. So I think even if you assume 25% of the way there with this new feature for US customers, like that could be tens of millions in additional profit this quarter that gets reported.
I mean, we talk a lot about lumpy Tesla numbers. Is this just going to add yet another level of lumpiness? Like when we finally have full self-driving gets fully released, all of the rest of the funds get drained out of the reserve account into Tesla's coffers, and then Wall Street's like, wow, what an amazing quarter. And then the next quarter, it's just sort of leveled out. Do you think that people are going to be like, what's going on? Why have their margins changed? You know, we saw such great profits in the last quarter, and now they went down. Like, do you think that that's going to be one of those news stories?
Totally, and I think you hit on a great point, which is like, at the end of the day, Tesla's a super complex company with so many moving pieces. It's really easy to grab one line in their financial statement and say it's going down and then write a headline about it, but you really have to take a step back. So that's why, like, you're right, it's really lumpy every quarter. It's really complicated. There's all these things moving in the business. So to help me, I look at like an annualized basis, each year, look at the numbers. That kind of smooths out a lot of it. But I think, you kind of have to be looking at every metric at once. And the bottom line is like, there's no easy answer. It's just really complicated. Yeah. I think that's where a lot of it gets lost in communication when people try and simplify the financial statements.
Right, because it's hard to give the gist of a company without just sort of being like, they're doing really well or they're doing really poor, and people are like, well, that's not what I heard.
Yeah, right. And then how are you going to explain to someone like the gross margin, GAAP, income statement, SEC filing accounting rules? Like, you're not going to get into that discussion. But that's why I love looking at deliveries, because that's just really easy. Like, how many cars did we sell this quarter? Is that more than we sold last quarter or less? Like, it's a pretty easy way to figure out, if things are improving or not.
And the big news right now is that we're hearing, if that email is true, that there may be 100,000 cars delivered this quarter.
Yeah, which is huge news, would be a record for the company. And I mean, I think we forget how the narrative of Tesla was, at least in the financial world that I'm in, was like, they did 95,000 last quarter, but they pulled out every stop possible. They're going to do 60 to 70,000 this quarter. That's the bear thesis. Yet again, we've seen Tesla prove them wrong, and all the shorts sort of have to readjust their metrics because Tesla keeps proving them wrong.
Right.
And I like you guys, so I kind of want to drop this info, but I have like a bet with a very notorious, very well-known, extremely rich short seller about Tesla's deliveries and how many cars they will deliver this year. And I made the bet with him because I was like, I want to hold you to your absurd estimate that is predicting a decline, and like he's way, way off.
Nice.
So it's really like satisfying for me to know that behind the scenes, these short sellers and financial firms are frankly just consistently incorrect and re-rating their estimates.
That's interesting, actually, because I keep imagining that, all of these analysts are sitting in a room somewhere and they're going like, how can we make lies about Tesla? How can we tell the people the false narrative? And it's funny that you have a bet with someone, because there's no incentive to bet against something unless you believe it to be true. It seems like you'd want to short the stock rather than make a bet with Galileo Russell.
Oh no, this guy is
Hyperchange.
extremely short the stock.
Okay.
I think it's just sort of an intellectual, okay, well, let's see who understands Tesla's business better.
Talk to me about some shorts, right? I totally get shorting the stock a few years ago. You just think that all this is an anomaly. But as each quarter and each year goes by, I don't know, maybe because we've been following it so much, I just can't imagine there's any shorts left. It just seems like there's nothing left for them to be fuddy about.
Yeah, and I think the biggest sort of thing that gets lost in translation here is that Tesla is sort of a victim of their own success. Going back to 2012, they had the stock price go from $30 to 180 in like 6 months, a short squeeze. We had a $35 billion company doing $2 to $3 billion in revenue of a car business. That is absurd multiples. So in the past 5 years, we've seen Tesla 10x their revenue to $20 billion, but their company valuation stayed around that $35 billion mark. So it's called, essentially what I think of it is backfilling the valuation. It was just so overvalued as this incredible growth story, had to fill into that. So the shorts for the past 5 years have looked kind of right because the equity price is really flatlined.
Yep.
But that's why, I'm not a financial advisor, it's not advice or anything, but I've personally been buying stock because I feel like the fundamentals, Tesla's delivering 10 times as many cars, making 10 times more revenue, I think are justifying that next big leg up in the stock price, which we'll see soon.
Okay, so you're saying that it might have been the case that a lot of people saw it grow so fast that they almost got scared away from it because they're like, well, that looks like a bubble, or that looks
too excited. I think so. This is the line of the intrinsic value of Tesla. The stock went like this, and now it's been flat like this. But I think we're getting to that inflection where it's fairly at intrinsic value, and there's no growth being priced in. And that's where have a very different thesis than the financial markets of I think Tesla's just getting started. I think we're going to go up to 200 billion, another 10x in revenue, and then that'll justify a several $100 billion market cap. Oh, and so one thing I think the short sellers, why are a lot of smart people shorting Tesla with a lot of capital? I think the big piece of that is that they're looking in the rear view mirror at the financials. These are financial people, not technologists. You think about what Tesla's doing with their AI. They built the fully self-driving computer. This is cutting edge AI technology. There's a handful of people in the world who can understand this and how its impact just on a technical engineering level, let alone on a business level. So that's why when I see all these analysts rate the self-driving tech of these companies, I'm like, some guy who's never coded in his life, who's never worked for a car company, is going to tell me who's ahead. This is a joke. So I just think when you're thinking about Tesla, instead of looking at the rear view mirror at the financials, you have to look ahead at the technology they're developing, and that's the two camps. The bulls are looking at the tech, the bears looking at the financials.
Let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about Rivian. Pretty exciting to hear that, if they keep to their time schedule, which I'm not sure, like you said, if it's 2024 is the final car will roll off or if it's 2030, but either way, a lot of electric vans that are going to be hitting the streets. What do you think about that whole announcement?
Epic. I'm sure you guys are pumped to just be Amazon putting a ton of money into electric vehicles is amazing for the space. Huge win for green enthusiasts, Elon Musk, who catalyzed this whole shift. To me, that's the day Elon Musk was validated as his vision of changing the car industry, was the day Amazon invested in Rivian, because that cemented his vision. So huge on that perspective. Frankly, if you're going for a delivery van, you want cheaper, more efficient batteries. I think Tesla has that technology in the bag. Some billionaire beef between Bezos and Elon had them go with Rivian. So there's a lot of interesting things going on here, but I think Rivian is far more a Tesla competitor and exciting than GM or Ford.
Yeah. I got this question from a grad student from Cornell. He's $35,000 in student debt, starting grad school, and he said, I want to buy a Tesla Model 3. All my family and friends think I'm crazy because that would be putting another $45,000 in debt. But if what you guys have all been saying is true, this would be the best investment I ever made. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you, because part of me wants to say, of course, that's a great investment. Part of me wants to say, well, I don't know if Elon will be right on his timing.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone like that?
I think that's a horrible idea. I mean, you know, if you want to buy the car and just because you like the car, I think that's an awesome idea. You know, we have like experts that can't decide when this is going to hit. So unless you think you have an edge there and want to make a strong prop bet on when Tesla brings its self-driving tech to market, go for it.
Yeah, when he asked me if he should do that, I mean, I really was torn, because part of me was like, he would be the biggest genius if he bought it and then full self-driving came and the price went up and he was like, haha, I've already got the car. But yeah, for a few years he'd have to Turo it out. Like, and if you're not an expert at Turoing a car, that's probably not a smart thing to do. Like,
Yeah, not the best position
Right.
to be making that kind of bet.
but when do you think that's actually going to become a thing? Because I feel like very soon, as soon as people are pretty sure that full self-driving will become a thing, it would be dumb not to invest, if you had the resources, into a fleet of cars.
Totally. And I think you're going to probably be competing with Tesla though, because their whole thing is they're going to let people rent out their cars and do their fleet. So I think once you start getting more than one car, you're like, you're in the taxi business. You know what I mean? Like, which I don't know if you want to get in. I mean, I personally am like, I believe Tesla's technology is going to get there first, and they have a really solid roadmap. And just the way to play that is to buy the stock, because I think that's a fundamentally transformative, you know, thing to their business model. Because think about it, yeah, sure, you can make a ton of money from that car, but like think about the company making millions of those cars. They're going to make, you know, they're going to do that for millions of cars. So that's kind of, I see where this guy's going, and that's actually ironically why I'm invested in Tesla as well. But I don't know if buying an actual Model 3 is a good way to play it.
Okay. Yeah, the stock is the easier way.
I could be wrong though. Maybe they, you know.
Right. No, but you're right though. I mean, investing in Tesla stock, from what you just said, is a smarter play in the sense that you can control how much you invest. You can, you know, you don't have to rent out your car. Like, you can sit on your couch.
Yeah.
So to that point, I know that you don't probably want to talk about stock prices and predictions and stuff, but let's just talk in general terms. Because I mean, Jesse and I are obviously long in the stock. You're long in the stock. I believe, kind of like Kathy Wood does over at ARK Invest, that the stock is very undervalued right now and has been kept in this trough, we think, largely because of fossil fuels pumping money into shorting it. That's the only explanation I can come up with. I mean, I know there's some people out there who just generally short it because they don't understand it, but I've got to believe that there's fossil fuel money involved in keeping it down. But I don't know that that can hold it down forever.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the biggest discrepancy is it was so overpriced before that it's been backfilling into that valuation. Now I feel like it's fairly priced. I mean, obviously, like, I don't give financial advice or like predictions that I think other people should follow, but I'm happy to tell you what I think, you know? Yeah. So I see a company that's worth like 45 billion. And then in the past, like if Tesla stopped growing today, like, and I think you normalize the cash flow, you're looking at like 1 to 2 billion, maybe like, let's call it 1.5 billion in normalized earnings. So you're paying 30 times the normalized earnings. That's kind of a standard growth stock multiple. And I think Tesla's growth rate of that earnings is going to grow way faster than the average growth stock. I think 30 on the normalized earnings power is a really cheap multiple. So I think that's kind of one way to look at it. And then over time you say, okay, I said this get to a $200 billion industry, you know, batteries take off, Model Y, the semi-truck, forget autonomy. They sold $200 billion worth of car, that 1.5 billion turns into 15 billion. You know, I think if you're making 15 billion in earnings, you're, you know, a $300 billion company that justifies 15x on the share price. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it's like, energy, $1 trillion opportunity. Transportation, $1 trillion opportunity. We're going electric, we're going autonomous. There's huge disruption in those industries. The company that leads it is going to be huge. And I think it's clearly Tesla. So, and then the other reason why I invest in Tesla is because it's less like, I think there is a financial upside, and I do want to make money, but it's also like not purely about money. Like, I really want to see this future, and like for me to have been investing in Tesla when the Model 3 was like Project White Star, Project Blue Star, and now see it on the road everywhere I walk in the world is just, and like I was a part of that in a weird way, I feel like such an amazing feeling. And that's kind of why I get involved. That's why I do my channel, to explain that like you're an owner. Like, I go to the Tesla factory and I'm like, wow, I own a little piece of this thing that's turning aluminum into like these amazing spaceships that run on sunlight. Like, this is so cool. And then, you know, if you get lucky and you're a shareholder, you can get involved with the company. So I don't know, I think there's many levels to it beyond just the financial part. It feels like I'm kind of part of a bigger movement, and that's really why I like to be involved.
Yeah. Now, you just recently got in a Model 3
Yeah.
and saw you having a grand old time. What was your takeaway from that? Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, and I've been in a Model 3 a couple times. I mean, it's just a different car. I think it's the smart car, just the way everything's been designed from scratch, the touch, I mean, I'm sure you guys know. Yeah, and frankly, the autopilot, really impressed with, I don't think people realize that if you own a Tesla and you're using autopilot, like it's moving the needle on your happiness and satisfaction to own that product in a huge way. So we're talking about when self-driving gonna hit, who knows? All I know is that it's making customers happier today, which is a really good thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, to your case in point, we drove down from Boston today. Normally a drive that tires you out, traffic, all that stuff. I don't know, what, 80% of the trip we're on autopilot?
Yep.
It can handle all of New York's roads, but a lot of it, yeah, so that you get down here and you have a lot more energy. Like,
All right, so what was the moment where you decided, okay, I'm long on Tesla? Like, what was there a particular point in time?
I remember the moment was, I was at my friend Julian's house in 2012. It was like freshman year of college. He's a super big Apple investor since third grade. Apple had just gone to the moon. Like it was kind of over, like everyone made a ton of money. And I was like, dude, we got in a, I don't think we got in a Tesla, but we saw a Model S, or it was the OG Roadster. Our mentor in our stock group had driven one and had told us about it. I was super into climate change at the time and was like, we have no solution for this. And so when I heard about Tesla, it just clicked. And I was like, the brand, the Model S that's about to come out, this is like literally the Apple of the auto world. I actually wrote an article in 2012, the Value Investing Letter, called Tesla, the Apple of the auto world is ripe for the picking, while I was long the stock at 29 bucks a share. It's just like, the brand, the minimalism, the perfection, the focus on the consumer, you know, that was so lost in the auto industry. Are we gonna see these decades old Detroit giants lead us in the electric autonomous era? Or the upstart started by a software entrepreneur who sold his companies for billions, you know, is like the smartest engineer on the planet? Like, this is a no-brainer. It just kind of like clicked, like Elon's the guy, this is gonna change the world, like I need to be a part of it. And ever since then, like once you get down the Tesla rabbit hole, you know, you get obsessed and you can't stop researching. And like, so.
how old are you when you started getting into stocks?
I started getting into stocks in high school and read Warren Buffett's The Snowball, figured out the richest people on the planet were hedge fund managers. So I was like, okay, this is worth looking into. And yeah, just, I basically found that one of my friends, good friend's grandpa ran a mutual fund. And so me and my friend Julian, the Apple guy, we like raced to hit him up to be like, I want an internship. No, I want an internship. And he was like, guys, like, let's just start a stock club. And so we started every Thursday, my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, went to this guy's house and had like lessons for a couple hours about the stock market. It was like amazing, totally changed my life. And I think that's my recommendation to like anyone who wants to learn about the stock market. Find a mentor, start investing, lose money, and like just really find those people that kind of know and they want to help, I think, in a lot of cases.
Did you paper trade to start? So paper trading is when you trade money that's not real money, you just pretend to invest. Did you do that, or how did you start?
Yeah, I started my freshman year of high school. We had like a paper trade portfolio and we did that and it was like really fun. And then I was like, kind of got more into it. And then actually my mentor was like, it's just different. Paper is different than when your actual money is on the line. And so I had $1,000 in savings and I was like, I'm gonna put $1,000 in to the stock market. And if I lose it, I got an amazing education. And if, you know, whatever, like, I don't care. And so I bought Sony stock in 07, crumbled, basically lost everything, but learned, got hooked. And yeah, and I think that's the great thing is like start with a little bit of money that you know you can lose. And I think you only lose by failing. A lot of people are scared of failure for a million different reasons, and I think that's why a lot of people aren't good at investing because they don't want to get punched in the face 20 times, you know?
Right, no, really good point. You just said basically that $1,000 was almost like your tuition for that course.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, so many people would easily spend thousands of dollars on some course to learn something, French, but like the thought of losing $1,000 in the stock market is like, oh my God, I would never do that.
And it's really crazy because I was always super nerdy into the stock market and it's like was my thing, and I felt like this tiny piece of the world that no one ever cared about. And then like I just kept kind of focusing and researching it. So I don't know if your thing is stock investing, but my point to this is like you focus on you, kind of like what you guys are doing, creating your own lane, creating, and like the world comes to you instead of trying to pretend who you think the world wants you to be. And so like me being super nerdy, I would go to shareholder meetings when there was no one there for like a $20 million micro cap company and like make my friend Julian, who I keep bringing up, he would go with me and like we're there at the Jones Soda shareholder meeting, you know, and it seems so nerdy and lame and no one cared. And then, you know, now I went to the Tesla shareholder meeting, like ended up talking to Elon Musk, ended up getting to meet Elon Musk at the shareholder meeting. So like that dumb nerdy thing that I did a decade ago and just started ended up being like this so much bigger. So yeah, it's been a really, really crazy journey, honestly.
Wow. That's really cool. I think our educational system is failing so many people because we don't talk about money in school. Like, did you learn about money in school?
No, there's no, and that's like a huge reason why I started Hyperchange, like taxes, investing, money, like nobody wants to talk about that. And that's more important than like biology in a lot of ways, or like math. That's, that is math that you actually need to know. Like,
right. I don't know, so many people reach out to us and are like, okay, I want to start investing. I have no clue where to start. And that's the hardest thing it's like, I want to help them, but it's like, there's, like you said, it's a process. You have to learn it. What advice would you give? You gave great advice as to like start actually finding a mentor and so forth. But if they are ready to invest a little bit of their side cash that they might have laying around, is there any advice as to like what a broker to use or how to get involved, like Robinhood or something like that?
I mean, you can Google a broker. I think that's the easy part. I think the biggest thing that people overlook is like investing is understanding and analyzing a business. So like you're gonna have to get really good and down and dirty at knowing what that business does. So go to their website, read every press release, listen to every conference call, and you'll watch what management says, how that unfolds. You'll see how this changes over time. Think about every investment as a case study. Like that's how I learn. It's just case study after case study after case study. And yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a good answer of like how to help people to learn, because that's like what my theory behind Hyperchange was. Like everyone asked me the same thing. How do I get started? How do I learn? Gali, like, stocks, that seems so cool. Like, and eventually I was like, screw it. I'm just going to make essentially the things that nobody wants to say, your most vulnerable ideas about stocks, your most controversial, most things that could be wrong, your deepest, like most honest, raw thoughts about stocks. I'll just put that on the internet for free, because I think people will be able to get so much value, like just based on what I think, and then they can start thinking on their own. So I think about this all the time, honestly, about how do we fix this.
A lot of people think that stock trading is only fun if you're buying and then selling, right? Day trading is so sexy, right? I'll buy low, sell high. But what you're doing largely is boring, right? You buy probably at a price you think is a little low, or a company you think is doing really well, and then I think you're pretty much a long holder.
Like hold as long as like decades, like, you know what I mean? So long.
But what do you say to people that are like, so boring, what do you just buy the stock and then sit on it? Like, what do you say to people like that?
They're not investors. Like, I think that's the other thing. It's like, you got to put in your 10,000 hours if you want to be an investor. If you want to just day trade and get rich tomorrow, like, good luck. You might as well go to the casino. I went through my whole phase of day trading, technicals, flipping the silver bubble. You can Google it. The silver went to like $50 an ounce and skyrocketed. I was trading weekly options, going up like 10x, losing 10x, So I've done that, and I just realized, like, I don't want to bet on like weird algorithms and gamble. Like, I want to do homework on technologies that are changing the world and give those companies money to help them change the world. Like,
so actually investing.
Invest in the future you believe in. Yeah, literally investing.
Just trading, right. That's a good,
No, seriously, actually, you hit the nail on the head. It's investing, not trading. Right. It's just that there's two mindsets, kind of. Yeah, so actually, can I ask you guys?
Yeah.
You guys are Tesla shareholders, so I'm curious, like, I always love to hear, like, why, what's your kind of, where's your brain at in why you are long Tesla?
I went through the same thing you were just talking about. I invested in Tesla at $18 a share or something like that, and then it went to 100, and I freaked out, and I sold almost all of it. I was just like, there's no way this company is valued at that. And it was true. On paper, it didn't look right. It looked so bubblish to me. So I got out then. And then you're right, as things settled back down, I've been just hoarding Tesla stock whenever I can. Because, there's nothing, all of the price dips are always on fear. They're always on something that Elon said, or we think he's crazy. It's never really on anything that seemed fundamental to me about the company. Maybe a little bit about when the Model 3 was being produced and it seemed like they were having trouble. You might say like, well, okay, that's a real thing. But still, I was like, they'll figure it out.
Right. It was just a matter of time. Like the production woes, it didn't have anything to do with the car. It's not like the car came out and everyone was like, wow, this thing's looks like a lemon. Everyone was like, it was better than basically all of our expectations. I mean, I don't want to speak for you. What do you think of the Model 3 compared to what you imagined it to be versus what it is?
I was worried about like Tesla's brand being still cool when they went down market. That was the biggest thing. And like, frankly, they crushed it. Like, I think the car looks so cool. Maybe I'm biased, but like whenever I walk past one, like I just think it looks beautiful. It's stunning.
I thought it was going to be a Toyota Corolla, like with just some decent range,
right?
Or something.
And that's all I wanted. I was like, oh, that would be just so oh, I just couldn't believe if they could do that. And then they came out with the Model 3 and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we sitting in it for the first time at the unveiling, and it was just like, oh, this is a Tesla. Like, this is not a joke.
How crazy is it that they're willing to pretty much out Tesla kill themselves? Like, they've ripped into their own Model S market with the Model 3, in my opinion. Like, there's so many people like, oh, why would I spend twice that on a Model S? Like,
that's the Apple thing, you know, the whole like iPhone, iPad cannibalization. You know, it sounds corny, but it's like Tesla's bringing down the cost of its technology like crazy. They're, you know, Audi, they're not making their tech cheaper, you know, so.
And to your point where you were worried about them lowering the brand, I know for a fact that they didn't lower the brand because we get lots of comments that say, I wouldn't buy a Model 3, it costs $80,000. And it's like, well, it doesn't, but it's cool that you think that.
Yeah.
You keep thinking that, buddy, because it just makes me all the cooler when I pull up to, you know, wherever I'm going. Everyone thinks that's an $80,000 car, and it's like, no, it wasn't. I got a huge tax credit.
And honestly, one thing you said about like my expectations versus, you know, how it came out, I think the biggest thing is, do people love it? Right. That's, you know, there's so much hype. Like, how to deliver on this unbelievable expectations. Talk to anybody that owns a Model 3. Yeah. They're never going back to gas. They are obsessed with their car. Yeah. Like, that is really powerful.
Right. I was always the guy in the office that all the Tesla owners would come to. There were like 5 Tesla owners, and just about once a week, they would want to come over and chat Tesla. They're not investors, they just owned a Tesla, and they were just excited about the features like over-the-air updates and like, what do you think they're going to do? Do you think self-driving is going to come out? It was just a constant conversation. I think it's so funny. It's pretty rare, I think, to have so many Tesla owners just always in communication with each other, but it's just funny how we were always trying to keep up with the latest and greatest.
well, yeah, think about, I mean, if it was a Mazda, like, that wouldn't happen. Like, you wouldn't be like, hey, can we talk about our Mazda? You know, like,
because you'd buy the car, you'd drive it, and everyone you knew who had one would drive it, and then you would get used to it, and then you'd be done with it. Right. There's no...
It's not a cult. And I think a lot of people say the negative cult side. Apple was a cult. Show me a company where their products are so good enough that their customers become fanatics and turn into a cult. That's a company I want to put capital into. You know what I mean? We're not talking about like Jonestown, like they convinced them to go into the afterlife cult. We're talking about like they're so obsessed with the product and it makes them so happy every day that they just are obsessed with it and want to talk about it. Like that's, you know, very powerful. Tesla has zero marketing, and that's why, you know.
yeah, each car that you put on the market becomes your own advertising. Like, you know, your neighbor's going to get in it, your friend's going to get in it, and they're going to get sold on it.
Now let's talk about the advertising question. At what point, as an investor, do you want Tesla to start advertising? And if so, at what level?
Really tricky question. I think they've honestly done a great job so far, and they don't need to. And frankly, like battery cell production has been their biggest constraint, not actually demand. And so I think if that changes and like they have a ton of manufacturing capacity and they're not fulfilling it, then I think they should start advertising. But you know, Tesla is really changing the game with that whole philosophy of like, if it doesn't make the product better, we're not going to invest into it. And then on my YouTube videos, everyone's commenting like, oh, GM ad, another Audi ad. And it's like, those are all dollars that they're spending not on your self-driving tech, not on making your battery better. You're buying a Porsche Taycan with worse specs for twice the price because they spent 10 grand per car on advertising, you know? So I think maybe just like the world's changing and people won't advertise anymore. The internet's free. If it's a good product, the word will get out there. It'll, you know.
Right. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. But if you were going to do an ad for Tesla,
I love this. I love this.
What would you?
Really?
Okay, you mean like who's in the ad?
I mean, yeah. I mean, budget is no option.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan,
like in his Tesla, like going full ludicrous mode launch, and then like saying how epic it was, showing like some other comedian.
I like it. I do think that we're in this bubble of people who know about it, though. Like I think everyone must know about it. Like there's so many on the roads, like you said, you see them on the street, but you have Tesla radar, like we do.
I can see one from a mile away.
Right.
I've literally been driving on the highway, and I've been looking, and I've just been like, that's a Tesla, and then 20, 30 seconds later, I'm like, see, it was a Tesla. Am I right?
But I mean, I don't know what percentage of people this is. I'd love to know. But there's a huge percentage of people in the US who have no idea what we're even talking about. If you say Tesla, they'll be like, so what brand is it? And you're like, Tesla. Like, I don't think they even know what we're talking about.
There's 700,000 Teslas actively on the road that I'd estimate, but like hundreds of millions of gas cars.
Right.
So, we're still at a very small, like early days.
Right. And that's where I think the advantage comes from an investor standpoint, because you're like, I know what everyone outside of the bubble doesn't know.
Exactly.
Well, okay,
where is
so-
the puck going?
Well, okay, so
Not
let me ask
where
you
is
this.
it-
If
where
this
is
was
it?
Apple, where are we on the Apple launch, do you think, in terms of Tesla? Like, where are we?
Actually, shout out to Matt Joyce, because he gave me this philosophy, which is China has a very interesting parallel. Well, they got all the China mobile deals, and then basically unlocked them to sell to the Chinese market, which was huge. Created this huge next leg of growth, and like really took the company to another level. I think that was like 06 or 07 maybe. But that's, I think, kind of the same thing that I'm seeing for Tesla is.
Oh, so
like,
the China factory is that spot, that same point?
Yeah, although I don't know, it's hard to make a perfect analogy, honestly, but I think the China factory is a huge point where they go mainstream in China. It hits the financials here in the US, and everyone's like, whoa, like they're making a lot of money all of a sudden, and it's people in the US don't really get how big of a deal it is in China. I've been in China twice, and it's like, this is real. This is a way bigger market than the US. They're fanatical about Tesla. I just think people here haven't gotten that yet.
Do you think that Kathy Wood from ARK Invest, when she says that she puts a valuation on Tesla at 4,000 a share, is crazy? Or do you think that that's fits a possible model?
Yeah, I think that gets a lot of like misinterpreted, because that's basically saying if autonomy hits, Tesla's the first and they roll this out mainstream, like this is a $4,000 stock. So I think if I'm a huge fan of ARK and Kathy, and I think if they're right, then yeah, I think it's very easy to see how this unlocks a tremendous amount of hundreds of billions of value. But there's scenarios where Tesla takes longer to develop it. They don't develop it. Another company develops it first. I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but frankly, I think Tesla is very, very far ahead in terms of the technology. But the question of where I'm less confident in ARK, it's like, how does this actually make money in the real world, like billions of dollars? It's easy to put on a spreadsheet that everything's going to happen. But
how many years ahead do you think Tesla is of, if you were to average out the other car companies, how many years ahead do you think they are?
Tesla, so I kind of want to caveat this with Tesla is the only strategy that I've really looked into, but I actually think Tesla is the only company that's convinced me that they actually are working on something that could actually be a solution. Like nobody else even has a shot. Like it's just this piecemeal solution of like a Ford car with all these other random company sensors with a LiDAR, it's just like on the NVIDIA chip, like it's just a piecemeal approach that I don't think is going to work for this technological problem. It's a really hard problem. Tesla has the hardware suite. They've been thinking about this for years. The 8 cameras, the chip, the neural net, 700,000 of us driving around training that neural net, paying Tesla to input that data, not what Google, Waymo, and Cruise are doing, paying engineers to drive around and input that data. Like if data is the new oil, Tesla has 1,000 times more. I think everyone else, and I think they need another 10, 100 times more to be close to self-driving. So think about how far behind everyone else is. So I think I'm very hesitant that the 2020 fully self-drive feature complete is a little too bullish, but I think Tesla's gonna be there first. I went in the first autonomous, like at the autonomy day, and I saw it read stop signs. I saw it take a left in oncoming traffic. Me as a person felt comfortable that the car was driving itself and knew what it was doing. So that's like where I'm convinced of like, yeah, the technology's a little janky, like maybe it'll mess up here and there, but like it's solid. It'll get you from A to B. Like if they let the demo switch, Elon Musk's car is probably going from his home to the office, and he maybe like almost crashes once, but that's it,
All right, so then we're getting really close to this point where there's going to be this switch where Tesla is going to sell a car that's going to be able to drive itself. And so having it be a robo-car or a robo-taxi rather, is going to be a huge advantage for Tesla if they are unleashing it themselves upon the world. What happens to the person who wants to buy a Model 3? Are they suddenly not able to buy a Model 3, or do you think that selling cars traditionally or maybe just leasing them is still in Tesla's business strategy?
Right, really interesting question. I think nobody will want to buy a Model 3, because why would I want to pay 50 grand or 70 grand for a car when it has full self-driving priced in, when I could literally just get a ride in a Model 3 with the click of an app for $1, and it would take me, it just wouldn't make sense for me to buy it, honestly. And I still am going to get around everywhere in the Model 3. And I think the other big thing we talk about, nobody knows Tesla, it's outside the Tesla bubble. When it's $1 a ride, like I'm thinking, okay, for this to be $1 trillion company, for this to be Amazon or Google, we need to like hundreds of millions of people using it every day. How do we actually get that to happen? We get these robot of Tesla networks. I'm not in a Tesla every day. I'm still in these random other Ubers, but I think those miles driven are going to skyrocket as a portion of the overall market in Teslas once this happens. And then that unlocks just like the 1% from buying it to like everybody.
I don't know. I feel like we could just keep talking all night, but we have to get back down to the party, and you guys are probably sick of us. So we'll say goodnight to you guys all, and thank you so much, Gali, for being part of the show.
Yeah,
dude, thank you guys so much for having me.
awesome.
Huge fan, watch your show.
We definitely have to do this again.
Totally.
soon.
I got to have you guys on Hyperchange.
Yeah, we're not far from you. We're only up in Boston, so.
Right?
Yeah.
We can meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Hartford. Huh? What do you say?
See you in Hartford.
Now you know. So I just want to give a big thank you to Gali. If you're watching, Gali, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So nice to meet up with someone and talk about Tesla and not have to worry about them just being like, well, I heard on the news that Tesla's going out of business. So it's always a nice conversation to have. And, thanks for chatting with us. That was really nice.
It really is. I hope we get a chance to do it again real soon.
Yep. Thank you so much for watching. Now you know.